so that's been great. We are going to start formally our board, so and obviously I think the recording started as well, so we just wanted to welcome everybody to our board and public meeting today. It's good to see you all. There are some new faces in the room, and I think it would be helpful if we went around the table and introduced ourselves. And those of you who are in the room are public and governors as well. If you can introduce yourselves around the table, that would be helpful. So we'll start with ourselves, and then we'll come to you. So if I start with David at the top of the table.
Hi, my name is David Tito. I'm the Assistant Director of Corporate Governance. Thank you.
I'm Sue Bedwell, Non-Executive Director and Chair of the People Committee.
I'm Vida Aria, Consultant Psychiatrist and Medical Director of Public.
Good morning, I'm Winston Way, I'm Non-Executive Director and Chair of the Committee.
Good morning, I'm Vanessa Devlin, the Executive Director of Operations.
Morning, I'm Val Blair, Non-Executive Director, Deputy Chair and Chair of Finance and Performance.
Morning, Patrick Arrowood, I'm Executive Director of Strategy, People, Partnerships and Deputy Chief Executive.
And good morning, you all know who I am. You're there, Chair of the board.
Good morning, I'm the Chief Executive.
Dave Thompson, Director of Finance.
Good morning, my name is Thomas Gurney, I'm one of the non-executive directors of the Trust.
Hello, I'm Lisa, I'm Chief Nursing Officer.
Hello, I'm Linda Cullen, I'm Non-Executive Director and Chair of the Policy Committee.
Hi, I'm Hannah Sullivan, I'm the Corporate Governance and Membership Manager. Good morning, I'm Kat, I'm the Company Secretary.
Brilliant. So if we can start, to my left and right. My left or right.
I'm Paige, I am Business Partner and Personal Assistant to Phil Machine.
Hi, well, I'm Leanne Staff Governor.
Morning, I'm Sunny Castle, I work as Chief Psychologist for the Trust.
Good morning, I'm Tim Hall, Associate Director of Communications.
Good morning, Sultan Mahmood, Interim Head of Comms.
Good morning, I'm Kate Lawrence, Second Year Clinical Psychologist Training on Presentation on Business Development.
Good morning, I'm Nick Moore, Associate NED.
Brilliant. Thank you. Just also wanted to welcome for the first time our new Associate Nick Moore, who's here. It's great to have him on board and come along today just to absorb the board meeting. In relation to apologies for absence,
Monica Shackleton.
Declarations of interest, I do need to declare my role as interim chair at Black Country Healthcare NHS Foundation Trust Board.
Yeah, I need to declare conflict of interest on the Chief Exec's report for West Midlands Employers for coaching and mentoring. I'm an associate consultant with West Midlands Employers.
Thank you. Anyone else? Thank you for that. So if we move on to the minutes of the meeting held on the 2nd of October, if I can just ask, are there any corrections, anomalies, or anything that hasn't been captured which you'd like to draw to our attention in any part of the minutes? Brilliant. So we can accept those as a true record held on the 2nd of October, and then if we just look at the matters arising, which the two matters arising I see here are actually in progress. Yes. Brilliant. Okay. Thank you. So I'm just going to which is on the PDF version, it's not there, so move over. Have you seen it?
That's it, you can iPad.
I know.
How long did you get a laptop?
It took me a year to get this laptop. So over to the Chair's report, and really today what I would ask is that everybody just accepts the reports as is, and that you've read them, and then if we just kind of pull out the key salient points for anybody who's got any particular questions or queries on that particular report. So mine is pretty much self-explanatory, really. I have already welcomed Nick, as I made reference there, in the governance matters. And the other point that I wanted to pull out is that I'm asking each of the committee chairs just to reflect, myself and Bashir have actually spoken about this, on our performance against the guidance, and we'll consider as a board whether there are any changes that we need to make, and this is in relation to the NHS guidance for boards to consider as part of their ongoing assessment of best practice. Also, I wanted. That's how it works.
Put in your Christmas
I
list.
really.
There you go.
Yes. The other thing that I wanted to bring to your attention is just a few things really. In terms of partner and system development and stakeholders under that particular heading, I talked about myself attending the Midlands Leadership Engagement Workshop, focusing on the 10-year health plan for the NHS, and also Sheen was along with me as well, with our other colleagues, and the event was one of 7 face-to-face engagement events happening across England to support the development of the 10-year plan. And this will be a vital part of the process we need to get NHS leaders from ICB and NHS Trust. I will say, I don't think there was that much of a focus around mental health at all. It was quite useful for us to be there. And I'm just looking down because a lot of the information in my report is pretty self-explanatory. And so I'm not going to spend much time bringing out anything else that is really key for you to hear, but happy to accept any questions if anybody has any in relation to my report.
Just a quick note, Phil, so when you mentioned the Insights for Board paper there's a board strategy session planned in January to talk through that.
Brilliant. Excellent. I'm going to continue using this. Thank you. Thanks so much.
There you go. You need one for Christmas now, Rich.
No, this is it. So, sorry, and to get back to that, when do you think that's actually going to be scheduled?
January, that session is
Sorry.
for January, yeah.
Thank you. So moving on to the service and site visit. Just can't get used to flicking bottom to the side. So this is the board and site and service visits annual report, and I'm pleased to offer the board of directors a summary of the board service visits throughout 2024. I'm not going to go through each one, but I am pleased to be able to confirm that this year, with an increased focus on visibility of board members, and this is really key for me, to ensure that the board actually gets out to as many of our services as possible as we can do. And that includes both near and far, because sometimes board visits can so easily just take place actually within Birmingham. We've also got our Solihull colleagues, we've also got our Wolverhampton colleagues as well. And I can say that I've been to, I believe, all services. I've been across all of the services and also visited with governors as well. But I do know that my board colleagues have actually been out there, and this is a testament of where we've actually been across all of the services that we have. It's really important that our staff actually get to see and know and put a name and a face to who the board members are, and it's crucial that we can actually continue to do this. It actually helps in relation to, I can actually get an opportunity just to share some positive things. It's not always negative, some really positive things and pieces of work that's actually undertaken, but also some of the challenges, so that we can hear that as well and take that back. One of the plans, I believe we were talking about it yesterday, as Ned, is often these visits take place in the day. And we would like to actually undertake visits in the evening, so we actually get to see our colleagues who work at the evening shift as well, and they actually feel they're valued and included and not forgotten, and that board members are only doing visits in their daytime slots. But we'd also like to do that, and I believe Lisa's got one scheduled in February, and I think a couple of the NED colleagues said that they would like to come along with you on that visit. So that's really, really brilliant to actually hear. So I think you can see all of the different sites that we've been across. I think what would be really useful as well is that gets communicated in our communique. I'm not quite sure if it does, but I think it would be useful to actually do that because even though we go to sites and people don't even know that we've actually been, because they wouldn't do necessarily, sometimes colleagues don't actually share that members of the board have actually been along today. So if we can actually start to drip feed that actually we are out there and we've been as visible as we can. And that actually also includes the governors, and that's important as well, that they get out there and they can communicate to their constituents as well the positive pieces of work that we're actually doing within the trust. So really, one of the things I wanted to mention, and it was a reflection on what Katie was talking about in relation to some of the concerns that were being raised even on my visits. Food was one of them, and I'd like to take back where I possibly can, not to make any promises, but if I can actually take back areas of improvements that we could just quickly tweak, then I will do. And that's the whole purpose behind the visits. The visits are not a royal visit. I usually just draft in and then just kind of come out. It's actually so that we can hear, take back, see where we can make improvements. And one of them was when I first came to the trust and I was doing my visits, there was lots of from the service users around the food, and how we could improve the food, and they weren't happy with the menu choices and so forth. And we took that back to SSL as well, and they started to look at their supplies and how they could actually change the menu and see where improvements could be made, and even discussions about having an on-site kitchen. So it does make a difference when you actually go around there. And actually, who knows, you may have a suggestion which could be help to move things forward as well. So there was other suggestions as well where I've been along, but I always like to email individuals who reached out to me to say, I've mentioned this, I've taken this on board, have you considered X, Y, and Z? So sometimes it's not always, we're not doing things, sometimes it's the fact that you yourselves have actually looked in key areas where you might find the information or resources to support you in that particular area where you have concerns. So just wanted to bring that across to you all as well. That's it in relation to my update on the annual board visibility that's taken place over the past 12 months. Are there any questions?
Just really to thank and acknowledge all the work that Lorraine and Hannah and Paige particularly have done over the last year. The scheduling has been, it's taken a lot of work, but it's been a real key focus for the team over the last year, and I think it's really shown in this report how well it's been put together. So thank you guys.
They've done a sterling job, they really have, to schedule everybody in and try and synchronise people's diaries so that we can actually get around and see as many sites as possible. I make sure that I try and visit a service every week as much as I possibly can. It's really important to me, and I love it. I really do like getting out and speaking to staff and seeing all the different services and travelling around as well. To Solihull, to Wolverhampton, Greening. It's fantastic. We do some really fantastic work, and it's good actually to get out there as well soon.
Yeah, I'd just like to also acknowledge Hannah and Lorraine for coordinating some of the corporate site visits that I've started to do. as my role as chair of the People Committee as well. So thank you for that, and also to thank Lisa for coordinating the night visits that are coming up next year for us to come along as non-execs as well. Thank you.
Brilliant, thank you. Thank you very much. It's back to me. It's back to me just to give you some feedback, annual feedback and annual report from our staff and service user stories you've heard today. And we've heard from a range of individuals throughout the year, and it's really been important for us. What I can say is I'm fully aware that most boards have both service user and staff stories at their board, and you can easily think that it's kind of a tick box exercise that we have it, and I make the statement at the beginning of whether it's a staff story or a service user story, how important it is to hear these stories, to round out discussions, to get some reality around the reports and what we're hearing at board meetings from those individuals who are experiencing. But we have heard from a range of individuals, and there are some key selling points in the report that just I'll bring to your attention, and some of them we've heard today, and that's the induction programme challenges, including access to ICT equipment. We've had that here at the board. Improvements in the services delivered in North Birmingham. Staff shortages, we know about nationally, we've been hearing about it here as well. Trust values and how these are observed by service users, carers and families. And that's important why we've reintroduced our trust values and how they're experienced by board members here at the board as well. So we're bringing alive our trust values, and obviously we're holding each of ourselves and our colleagues to account in relation to that. And also the use of restraints. And we heard it today, and I've just mentioned it now, about the lack of variety of food options for inpatients. Spiritual care support across service users and staff received positively. We had Sharon who came, which was fantastic, as well. We had the second memorial service. And even though there was attendance could have been better, I think it's great to actually have that here in the trust. So, you know, she's doing some really positive work. And also the positive feedback from a range of staff groups being supported to develop within the roles. And there's a lot more information which I won't go into that's in the report as well. And actually, again, just what's active here in the last paragraph is the trust have escalated the feedback in relation to catering. It's something that I know that who are the suppliers and the directors, departments, chains to our board meetings to discuss the concerns raised, and have been assured the review of the range of alternative options, and I know that has already taken place, are available, and cultural needs have been considered and are catered to. So I think it's really important that we have these annual reports actually come to the board so we can assess the impact and the difference that hearing these stories are actually making to the decisions we make there.
I think it's also really helpful if we use this as a general issue, as opposed to just going to fix that. So it's how you bring it back as a general point, and then bring it into the appropriate piece. So SSL's got a part in that, but we've also got a food group. And it's important that goes into those. It's how we make sure our governance arrangements really taken into account. So I always, when I go out, try and look at the general points as well as the individual. It's how you get those coming through, because otherwise we can see each other. So it's how we just make that work properly.
Yeah, thank you. That's great. David.
Yes, I think one of the recognitions with our patient stories is the fact that we've not just been listening to the good stories. It's been a mixture, a blend of both uncomfortable stories and comfortable stories. Yeah. So it's what we recognize in that.
There's other points to it as well, in that it's very good for staff to be able to see that all of their views and considerations, particularly that they know the processes that they work in day out, And they will see where we can make improvements, they will see where we can make changes that will make a real difference. And some of the things that have been most useful and that have done have been even small points like something needed to be fixed in the high secure extra care area, which would make a huge difference to patient care. And even that is always worth thinking of it. So just to know that I suppose those visits are really valuable because the staff in the process is better than we do.
Thank you, everybody. If there's no more comments on that, I'll move on with the agenda. So, Chief Executive.
I'll take the report as read, and from my perspective, there's quite a lot in there. Just a couple of things I wanted to highlight. Sue mentioned in her introduction around the declaration of interest that we have been asked as an organisation to take the lead on looking at the leadership system, coaching, mentoring, and connectivity. And it's a really important piece of work because it came out of the open conversation that we had across the whole of Birmingham and Solihull, including the local sector and local authority, and anyone working in any part of our system had the opportunity to take part in that conversation. And one of the pledges that came out of that, based on what people said, is that they wanted inclusive and compassionate leaders. And one of the ways we can make sure that we're supporting people to be there and invest in that space is through providing really good mentoring and coaching. So a really important, small piece of the report, but a really important piece of work that we're taking some leadership on. Just also wanted to mention that in the report I've written about the fact that we had our psychological professions taking the opportunity to celebrate each other, their professions, and also to consider what the future looks like as part of the week of recognition. What I didn't put in the report was that actually allied health professionals also celebrated on the given celebration time during November and had an equally enjoyable and fulfilling opportunity to come together during the month. I've pointed out that we are working quite hard on looking at our sexual safety policy and how we implement that fully across the trust. From a sustainability point of view, we'll hear a lot more about where we're at with the financial position, but I think it's important that we recognise that we're continuing to work really positively as a system. We are not quite where we wanted to be as a system on our financial position, notwithstanding that we as a trust, in fact, are forecasting to be where we plan to be. So a mixed picture, but within the trust itself, a picture of really kind of focused attention that enabling us to be in the place that we want and need to be. As a board, we obviously meet as a commissioning committee to think about our responsibilities as a commission to really mental health provider collaborative. This report has given us an opportunity to understand a little bit more about the other collaboratives that are happening in Birmingham and Solihull, in particular the community collaborative and our role in that, a significant role in that, and really thinking about our alignment of our neighbourhood and locality work to that whole entire system as well. I just wanted to, under quality, just to reiterate, people will be aware, and the public will also be aware, that we've had publication of 2 reports in the last period since the board met, and a mixed picture. So really a sense for us about where the focus of attention is making really good improvements, and that's been borne out and that was in the Community Health Team's report. Thank you to all our staff in those services who really got behind the action plan, who really thought about what would make the difference to patients and what was being heard about patient experience and carer experience. And as I said, a mixed picture. So our report following the inspection to Rayside really highlighting for us, once again, the cultural issues that we have as challenges and how we tackle those over time. I just also wanted to talk about, to highlight for people the cultural care programme. You can underestimate how important this is. We've got 4 areas of the trust that are engaging this at the moment and engaging in a really positive way, recognising how different this can make to both experience, to look patients that they're caring for themselves as well. And our ambition is that during next year, we will enable all of our ward-based inpatient areas to engage in the culture of care work that is going to be happening. I think we'll look forward as a board to seeing what the difference on a couple of other items I just wanted to highlight, children and young people, just to confirm what we already know as a board, but to confirm in public that that we have agreed with both the ICB and the children's boards have moved to an all-age model with a single provider, and that work is continuing to happen. We hope to be in a position where our intention is to be in a position by the end of this calendar year to be clear about the timeframe for that. Nationally, things have been really busy. We've had obviously our new Secretary of State and the Department of Health team and others, and NHS England have been working really hard to determine what this new government means, what it will mean for health and care. And we've had a number of pledges and commitments made in the recent months, and I've set some of those out, but three in particular. We're awaiting some planning guidance. Our expectation, I was here yesterday, is that the intention is that will be delivered to us before Christmas. People remember that last year it didn't come for a long time, and it does make it difficult to be clear about how we're paying attention to. Our understanding is that it will not be as comprehensive as usual, and i.e. that it will be really clear about a few areas of focus and priorities. So we look forward to receiving that before Christmas, and therefore thinking about the implications of that. Bill mentioned one of the roadshow events around the 10-year plan, so that consultation started, and we are actively and should continue to actively encourage and trust our public that we're in contact with our service users, with carers, all groups and organisations that we work with on a day-to-day basis to get involved in that. Bill did mention that that we took part in didn't talk specifically about specialties or particular areas like mental health, and that might be something that we might want to think about in our response back around what's been important in focusing around very clear focus around mental health for some years has made a difference, and there might be some anxiety about losing some of that. And I've also put in the report about the fact that NHS regulation of managers has also been trailed, and again a consultation which David Tinter is going to take some leadership on behalf around being involved in. I think we all welcome it. What we want to make sure of is two things. One is that the regulation focuses on accountability for the right things, and we want to be able to influence that. And secondly, that learning is taken from our regulators who have found themselves in a situation where taking regulation and accountability seriously has led to systemic racism and inequalities of experience. So we would want to make sure that any regulations, new regulations that we have in place takes account of that learning. But we don't have an opportunity to give feedback on that. And that was all I wanted to say on my bits of the report, and I'll hand over to Vanessa.
Thank you, Roisin. So, as ever, sort of condensed 2 months into a few pages of the report, so my font is getting smaller and smaller to fit everything in. So if I start just sort of overviews, all services are working really hard to recruit to vacancies. So you can see some green shoots in many of the divisions around that, specifically from a psychology and from a nursing perspective, so that's really good to hear from some of the wards. Really focusing around productivity, looking at their plans, looking at performance, and actually drilling down on that. We've got a performance delivery group which is working well, and the deep dives into the divisions, that absolutely is continuing as well. Lots of transformation work going on, so we'll go into a little bit more detail in some elements of the report. In each of the divisions we're doing major transformations, so it's how we engage our staff, our service users, in driving those changes forward, which is really sort of good to see here. So if I start with ICCR, which is our Integrated Community Care and Recovery Services, a couple of things to pick out there. So particularly steps to recovery, that's our inpatient rehab wards. We talked there very much about flow as our system, about service users spending as little time as possible or as needed in each of the inpatient wards. We feel like we've got a real good sort of model of flow in our rehab wards. And we've introduced and we're working with the community rehab into rehab team. So that's a new team that we've implemented into the service area. That's working really, really well. It's helping service users step down from out of area into back into Birmingham and Solihull, but also it's helping discharges and it's also helping to prevent admissions. So we've been speaking to the division, they're talking about expanding that service potentially, or having another service very, very similar because it really, really is helping with the flow. There's some sort of figures I've put in the report there, just around spot purchases, reduced those from 101 down to 78 with a further 7 service users on imminent discharges from out of areas. That's a really, really good sort of story there to tell. Some work that Compass are doing, I think I might have mentioned it last report, around how they're working with the divisions and actually training and encouraging and working with colleagues around dual diagnosis, understanding sort of issues around addiction, how that mixes with mental health and how we can support from that dual diagnosis perspective. It's important to note about the homeless team. So many of us have been to visit the homeless team, the Ross Sleepers mental health team. So they were based over at William Booth. We picked up and were alerted to the fact that that building would no longer be available from the end of December. So we've been served notice to the team and where are they going to be.
It was short notice, wasn't it?
It was very short notice, yes, it was short notice. So the team have been working together, working with our colleagues from SSL and also working with a GP partner at the Atwood Medical Centre who we partner with to deliver the homeless service. We've done an impact assessment around potentially the move and the impact for service users, and luckily we've only just last week we've moved over into that GP surgery, which is the other side of Birmingham City Centre, but it's still a city centre service around access. So
yeah, the station.
Yeah. So it's really, really good news that we've got somewhere to, as an agreed place to move to. So we just need to work through the logistics of all of that.
Equal amount of space.
I don't think there's an equal amount of space. Yeah. So there's going to have to be some sort of changes around delivery of service around that, but a potential to maybe to outreach a lot more. But they do need a physical space which has to be infection prevention compliant because of the physical health needs and care that they deliver in that space.
Because it's regulated, isn't it?
Yes, GP surgery. Yeah. So, it's all right, it's okay. If I go on to a secure and offender health, just some really good news stories there about a couple of peer review around the CQC Mental Health Act. Sycamore Ward was outstanding, so that's really good to hear that. And some successful appointments and moves around in the division as well, with the inequalities lead as a matron role, and also one of our matrons over at Tamarind, who's successful in the service manager role at Roadside. So that's good to see that. I think important HMP Birmingham, and it's sort of been on our radar just as a bit of a risk area around sort of staffing, etc. That seems to be improving, so we've got some evidence of that, which is good. Also working with our colleagues, Birmingham Community Trust as well, they seem to be recruiting to those roles, because I know there's a bit of tension between our organisations and the staff on the ground, so that seems to be really working through and the relationships are improving. They had a peer review quality network review, so they met 85% of their standards. That's really good to sort of hear that as well, so you can see the benefits there. The first team, or the Forensic Intensive Recovery Support Team, getting very excited around their move to Main House. They've been squashed in like sardines just over the road from Rayside, so that's good. That's all we're working through, and they're helping support what that space looks like, and involved peer support workers along that as well. If I move to acute and urgent care, which is where we feel and see a lot of activity at the moment, Our system at this moment in time is running as critical around ambulance offload, around flow. There's twice daily meetings. We're involved in as part of a system actually trying to help how we can help partners around that flow and our ambulance colleagues. So it feels quite intense at the moment, making sure we've got the right patient in the right place at the right time, so a lot of focus on that. We've relaunched and rebranded and really changed the focus of our out of area steering group. And I know we talk about that, you know, we do have a real hotspot there around placing people out of area and trying to bring people back and make sure we have a timely discharge. It's rebranded to our patient flow improvement programme. We've really sort of turned up the dial around the locality working, accountability, making sure that the teams have the right data and actually how they can help and support their own individual flow, both in and out of ED departments, also people who potentially are in the community, at risk to self or others, and how they can access a bed. So there's a lot of work going on around that. We're still meeting weekly, and lots of other additional work is going on with the teams in those areas. Big piece of work also, which you probably pick up with the performance report, is around clinically ready for discharge. I've been chairing the deep dive meetings and working with our discharge managers around what is preventing that discharge. It really is evident that we do have some complex discharges. People don't just come into hospital and go back home again. Then some people need really quite detailed packages of care, additional support at home, as well as sort of adaptations, etc., which is really sort of slowing down discharge. Now, working with our local authority colleagues from Birmingham City Council, they co-chair the meeting with me, so it's good to have them in that space. You know, we can allocate social workers if there hasn't been a social worker allocated, which is one of the blockages there in that meeting. So that's been sort of very helpful. We also have confirmation that City Council will also provide and support with us a quick turnaround discharge team. I've noted in here that that team hasn't come to fruition yet. We're still trying to recruit the social workers in that team, so that seems to have slowed things down a little bit. But we've had some assurance that we'll have those people in post within the forthcoming weeks. So I shall sort of have my follow-up conversation just around that, because those posts are absolutely desperately needed. Just made a note here about an audit that we had around 72-hour breaches in A&E from NHS England and ICB colleagues. Some good practices noticed in there, but also some areas of improvement. So the team are working around what does that look like. And one of those areas of improvement is around how we can use our psychiatric decisions unit better to make sure that we're absolutely using it to its full potential. You know, and have we got the admission discharge criteria right there as well. Some clinical oversight as well, so the leaders have been helping that with that around medical oversight, as well as more senior nurses in there, again to help flow and make sure patients are discharged in a timely manner. Quick note around right care, right person. So we launched into phase 3 and 4 on the 18th of November. We had additional preparation to enable us to do that, and just a note and a thank you to Dr. Dinesh Viganti, who did some training with over 100 attendees across particularly the acute and urgent care division around what does that mean. Working again really closely with the police, we have regular touch points throughout the couple of weeks following that, and we're also doing some benchmarking around the national guidance, which has come down for right care, right person. We'll bring that through governance and processes, just making sure we actually are doing the recommendations in there. A key point for us also is around the KPIs. Are we recording the right information? Do we know if this is working right? Do we know if we need to be doing some more focused working in particular areas? So we should be getting that report coming through exec steering group and through clinical governance, just to have that oversight. And finally, primary care, dementia and specialty services. Again, really good to note that the rare dementia service team was shortlisted for Site Excellence of the Year, which is really good to see that. And they attended the award ceremony. Memory assessment service, a lot of focus around this. Again, sort of concerns around people waiting for memory assessment. You know, what does that look like, and how can we help and support with seeing people quicker, so we can get their dementia diagnosis. We've been doing some sessions, waiting well sessions, which I've noted here, the Little Recovery College, which is really, really well received, which is great, and working with our voluntary sector organisation as well, the Alzheimer's Society, around what does that look like. So looking differently at what we can do together, working with partners, as opposed to sort of, you know, just us trying to deliver that service. That's good to read that as well. Birmingham Healthy Minds, again, I've talked about performance, really focusing on their performance. What can we do differently? Again, working with partners as part of our integrated offer across Birmingham and Solihull. So again, a bit of a note there just around we are increasing people being seen in treatment. We have a target of 806. We are now at 712 TUPUS contacts, so that's really good to see. And you can see on our trajectory with our performance monitoring that we are going and increasing that week on week and month on month. I think I probably need to finish there. I've had one positive note again is in October, the significant month of the Arts Psychotherapy Service. I can't even sit here and read all this. That's going to take another 10 minutes of all the awards and the names shots for many of our people who won awards, presentations, both externally and internally in the organisation. And you know, the thanks and the praise given for art psychotherapy, which always feel kind of under the radar in our organisation. I want to be an art therapist, but around here today, and what happened there. But yeah, I mean, it's amazing just to see, you know, a small service, but what real impacts that they have across the organisation and for individuals. So on that lovely note, I shall stop there.
We'll definitely pass on our congratulations.
Oh yeah, it's
amazing. I've been across
there.
They
well.
do some amazing work.
Yeah,
and they're
it's fabulous.
in terms of the career path for individuals who want to get into art psychotherapy as well. And I'm just super impressed. It was great to see that in the report.
Yeah.
Definitely do extend our thanks. Something if you can do to the team. We really are super proud of them and super proud of all of our staff. Super proud of them.
Yeah.
For securing those awards. Thank you, Vanessa. I've got a few questions, but I'll just open it up. Are there any questions?
Yeah, just on the 10-year plan. It could be just me because I'm not close enough to the sort of the detail and the discussions that are taking place. How much emphasis and focus has been given on prevention over the next 10 years? Because it doesn't seem to get mentioned.
Well, it's one of the three. There's three very specific perspectives to the 10-year plan. So one is the move from treating illness to prevention. One is moving from analogue to digital, and the third is moving from digital to digital. So it's set in a really simplistic. These are the three pillars of the 10-year plan, and the consultation is about what what do people want to see being delivered, and focus on in those three areas.
Vanessa, I just want to ask specifically about one of the things I picked up within the report was the clinically ready for discharge dates are increasing significantly.
Yeah. We've
Well,
got.
that was one of my questions, so if you get back.
Yeah, we can.
Yeah, but on the back of that, any other questions? First, I'm pleased to hear that our local authority colleagues are actually coming around the table to help in relation to that. One of the sticking points has been individuals who have been medically fit for discharge don't have the appropriate care packages in place.
Yes.
And that is actually causing, it isn't the main, but it's one of the main issues that's causing the blockage. And they can do something about that in terms of weakening that sort of panel process of approval for certain packages that need to be done. Are you finding that now this new group that's been formed in Oxford, you've got those social workers in place, should help to move that forward? Or is there also a financial issue where local authority colleagues are sort of staggering the approval of packages because of budget constraints. I'm not sure if that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of things in there. I mean, there's a joint package, so between health and social care. So what does that look, and making sure that we do the right assessments on a form that feels sometimes about that long and takes ages to fill in to make sure that we're getting the right care and the right funding for those individuals. There's packages just the local authorities fund, the CHC packages, which are complex, health packages. And there's also, it's more than two, isn't it? And there's also someone needs a care and support, and from the local authority perspective, they put onto what is called Care Match. Yeah, so they put onto a system which is lots of organisations who have been vetted, obviously, and sort of meet standards, and it's put on there on a block of forms on the intranet. And organisations will read the care package and say, we can support that individual, we can do this, we can do that. The organisations then go and assess the individuals, then they say, yes, we can meet the needs, and they come up with a cost. But I'm really finding that doesn't happen in a day.
No, it doesn't.
That can go over weeks.
Oh, easily.
Yeah, and that is really holding some of the flow up. But the complex packages, there are pushbacks from our local authority colleagues. Sometimes when the package is thousands and thousands and thousands a week, around is this the right package? Can we do something a little bit more less restrictive? And I particularly are finding those from an older adult perspective, from what side I've been supporting with. So there's lots of different elements to it. But hopefully with this quick turnaround team coming and sitting with us, they will have, and their focus is, because we've done some sort of work around this, is the age group between 25 and 65. That's where we really have some real flow and blockages. And there are people who are sitting in our acute inpatient wards. But the team will focus on those 20, 30 service users. They will be allocated social workers and they'll be working. So when the team come in, it will increase. Because at this point in time, you have a social worker that may work in a social work team. They've got another caseload of 30 odd people. So their focus isn't solely on trying to really unpick the flow and move people through a lot quicker. So there's a few elements to it there, Chair, that I really have picked up.
So I think if we want to be really open and honest about that we do believe that we are beginning to see some negative impacts of the transition. And I think that we're concerned that that's going to get worse. And I think in this period of time that we're in at the moment, one of the other concerns we've got is that the senior team within the council is all changing. Yes. And there are gaps. And so the ability for us to be able to be clear about who we're talking to and then understanding what we've already done and how we've already worked together is impacted on. But we do have, through the ICB, an ability through David Melbourne meeting with the Commissioner, because the Commissioner is now running the decision making about where funds are allocated. So you asked the question about the short notice about us needing to exit a building. Well, that was based on a decision that was taken. In fact, Council, there were more concerning elements, impacts of that particular decision because of the Salvation Army and the packages of care that they provide to the homeless people and how that's going to not be available to them anymore. So we are beginning to see it really tight, fighting it. Patrick's experience of the most recent Health and Wellbeing Board was that there is an acceptance in the Health and Wellbeing Board that things are going to have an impact and a question for health about what we're going to do to mitigate some of the risks and concerns that are coming through. So we're beginning to see it and experience it. We need to use that inroad to commissioners, and we talk about it a lot as chief executives within our system around what the next level of conversation might need to be.
100%. That's really helpful because that was my concern. My concern is they're trying to see where they can make as much savings as possible. And when it comes to care packages, they often prefer to split So we feel that this is, 60/40 health, stroke, social care, and sometimes that agreement and assessment can take time. And the person who's medically fit for discharge is sit and take about 6, 7, 8, 9 weeks, which will go on to Thomas be out of area as well, and because it has an impact on that point, clearly, very much so. So there's pressure on us from the system to actually get grip and control of out of area, but there's also other external pressures that's impacting on our ability to be able to do that. Sorry, Thomas, I'll bring you in and I'll come back to my out of area question, which will be my last.
That's helpful. I think you're talking really about the same things I was going to raise. So two key points in this. One was just in terms of Phil's point about pushing out of area when the system's under pressure and we don't have beds available due to CRFC or delays. It might be really helpful to the system to do a cost benefit analysis of that push and what that costs overall. That would be quite useful because I think that is one way of working in synergy within the system to actually have better outcomes for patients, but also care closer to home. And the second was with the rapid response, or I'm sorry, I've forgotten the term used for this.
Yeah, that's like a rapid response discharge team. Which is.
It would be really interesting to see what the success measures are of that team in terms of, I suppose, more simple discharges versus complex and demonstrate the overall blockage in case as well.
Yeah.
And I would wonder how we might be able to show that in the same language as delays for other, I suppose, CRFD across acute, similar to, I suppose, P0 through to P3, because at least that might show the proportionate, I suppose, challenges that mental health face in blockages in comparison with other systems. They probably are less tolerant in acute, but I think it just makes
I think I might have raised here before, sorry Chair, that our acute colleagues do have a significant issue around being ready for discharge. And there's been a piece of work led by the Chief Nurse, a main event around discharge planning to P2 and P3 and step down, and that has really come to fruition. We've really seen some significant improvements in that. So they've asked, and I've suggested that we do it also in some of our inpatient wards. So we're working on what does that look like, making sure we've got everybody engaged, as well as how can we apply the same sort of principles to people sitting in an A&E and in our PDU as well, psychiatric decisions unit. So those events are actually being worked up now, and that's how we can get that flow. Again, some learning from how it's worked in P2 and P3. Yeah, so it's good.
I won't pick it up later, but also will make a similar point in terms of winter planning.
Yeah, absolutely.
Finally, the last point for me, RCRP, we're in waterfall. What do the vital signs look like in terms of this? For this one, the crucial one for us is about section 136.
Yeah.
Right. Are we getting any intel that this appears to be going well or not?
Yeah, I think we had the touch point meeting, so that was, senior police colleagues coming onto the call virtually, and anybody could go into there and say, look, we've got a problem here. That seems to have worked well. We responded to some issues. I know Fadida's had some conversations also just around a couple of sort of tricky conversations around how can we do this better, what's the learning from what we've done. I mean, we're only a couple of weeks into it yet, but we want to actually monitor it really closely. What do the KPIs look like, which is obviously come from sort of the national guidance as well, making sure that we are looking at that. Police are collecting data also, and they'll have a good data set, they're saying, by January time. We're still having the strategic meetings with the police, again, an opportunity for all partners, including Black Country, Coventry and Warwick, just to sit round the table with our police colleagues to sort of talk and give feedback. So it's early days yet. We said that the 1360 seems to have gone down.
I think that was the aim for us and the police to reduce the number of patients going on 136, and in the initial week of the change, we did feel that it had reduced, but we'll just wait to see the data.
Yeah, we just need to make sure how sustainable that is.
Absolutely.
We know, the reason that this is so important is because West Midlands Police Force are now complete outlier in the numbers of people that they're using 136 for, and the number of people who subsequently we get involved in their care in the way we would expect through 136. Really low, less than 20%. of people who have been subject to 136. So knowledge about the experience of the individuals, the experience of people need, and secondly, around the pressures that that puts across the whole of the police and for us and other parts of health and social care. So it's a really important part for us around wanting to support, but also continue to challenge all the things around this.
I'm just thinking. As well, drop them off there, so when they don't need to necessarily do that, so there's lots of lots of ramifications and benefits to see those numbers being reduced.
Would you have a mechanism in place that we've triggered now where if police are asking if they could have a conversation with us, if they're thinking potentially of using 136, is there an alternative to that, and more a clinical conversation? So that could be the impact because they are calling us before and having that clinical conversation. Some service users known to us. So, taking to A&E or basic safety probably isn't the right thing to do, but bringing them into one of the hubs, let's have a conversation, go home treatment. So that has now been triggered. So that's an option that the police have asked for, that we put in place also to help with this. And just one final point in that, if we've got any concerns, if there are any sort of issues, we're asking our staff to put it onto our Eclipse system. So again, we can start pulling reports around all of that being reported as well. So so we can track that through and bring that through into a more detailed report. Thank you.
Thanks for that, both Machine and Vanessa for your reports. We're going to move on to the BAF and just taking as read that you've read it. David, is there anything in the BAF that wasn't reported previously that you'd like to draw our attention?
No, I just want to note that there are two reports under this agenda item. The very first is 10A, which is the old BAF, which has been through all board committees and the audit committee and the risk management group, and they've all recommended that it be closed and archived. So they've approved that. So it's come here for the board to ratify that decision that was made down there. And then, but there are two key things to note here. One is that we put in place a mechanism to ensure that once the OBAC is archived, everyone across the organization is aware of that, so that they don't keep referring to it. The second is that there are some actions that have not been able to move them to the new world, onto the new BAF. Those actions will continue to be implemented with the executive directors providing oversight within that space. So in terms of the act, it's just for the board to do the report and then to ratify the decision and the recommendation for the whole BAF to be archived, so that we can lay it to rest formally. Thank you.
So can I just ask the board, are we happy to do that? And board committees? Yes.
Are you going to be going on to the new BAF?
Yes. And then the second paper is on the new BAF, which is 10B. Is just to be able to record appreciation and a big thank you to the executive directors and the deputies and the ADs for having worked on this within a short time frame. In terms of the new BAF has been through the governance structure, the board committees and the risk management group as well. It's been largely endorsed at those levels as well and recommended to the board for ratification. It's worth noting that for BAF SR7, which is tailored to deliver optimal outcomes with available resources, that is still awaiting some multi-priority discussions, which will take place in the coming days. And then this will formally go to the extraordinary risk FPP, which is called on the 19th of December for approval, and then we'll come to the board in February for ratification, for inclusion into the new BAF. So the new BAF is coming here for the board to note and for the board to approve, to ratify, for it to be implemented across the organization. And then we will need now to populate and get that information out there through the various management groups and the governance structure, so that they know that there is a new board assurance framework in place, and everyone can now migrate to it and take it, adapt it for implementation.
Thank you. Dave.
I just wanted to pick up SR7 and SR6, so there's two new ones that Lisa and I have had discussion about, because they're both in essence, they also relate to patient care as well as sustainability. So SR6 is about avoiding failures. Okay. SR7 is about maximising the benefits of what we do. Those are two quite substantial ones that are different in nature from what we've had before. So what we're looking at is something using, I think it's exclusive. Do you want to just describe the care piece you talked about, the quality indicators we spoke about?
Oh, in terms of the cultural care framework and how we identify what good looks like in actions. So there are 12 domains with substandards that sit within those 12 domains, and they cover literally everything in terms of care provision, from your environment through to your effectiveness of your support and training of your staffing, through to activities and progressive interactions and therapeutic progress, access. It literally covers a whole wealth of care indicators that to give us appropriate measures in terms of what good looks like. So not just what haven't we done, but really shifting our focus and our culture onto what are we doing really well, and driving that sort of cultural improvement and excellence, which I think will really engage people differently and sort of give a different shift and take on some of our historically difficult to address areas and issues in a different light, so that we can start to see some progress, I think, at greater pace.
And rather than do quite a complicated thing with a whole series of different lists, we took the view that actually we're going to do that anyway, which is a real good experience of care part. It should be what we use to drive both of these. So we've got to do further work on that both way, but also how we maximise the benefit. And it would be useful to have that debate and discussion probably at the board development session, because it does mean that impacts on just not FPP, which is there waiting for a schedule, and the QPs as well. So it's probably worth working that through. That's why that one primary, both those aren't finalised yet.
I think it's really good, and I think it starts to develop that triangulation. I think, you talk about quality and finance, I think there's a good aspect to it as well. And I think this is a really positive step forward in terms of how we articulate values.
Any other questions? No? David, thank you for that. We look forward to this. Is this the final version?
Yes, this is the final version, which is a final, and then the holding position while we wait for S7 to be finalized, and then it will eventually be included into it. So which means that this final part, once ratified today, will now go into operation.
Yes.
We'll now be able to populate and then it goes into operation.
It's big. Great, thank you. Thank you for that, David. As you've got in your report, we're asked to review and note the contents of the report which we have done. So thank you for the work that you've done on that. That's brilliant. So if we move to the IPR, the Integrated Performance Report.
So we spent quite a lot of time talking about this FPP, and it goes directly to this conversation earlier on about outbreak and all kinds of things. So just trying to read this concept. So the dashboard itself, which is included in the report, it now contains links to relevant measures for each division and services. Up till now, it's been operated and just shown at the top level. There is stuff when you go into the interactive, you look at what's happening in individual services and lines, as well as an overall division. Over a period of time, we'll also be having specific service area or divisional dashboards as well. So that's the future plan. But we do provide additional drill-down information what's there. In terms of the overall performance, so we flagged up quite some time ago a number of areas, primarily in the area of performance, where we were fairly target and not achieving what we needed to do. So just reporting on those, the areas of progress over the last year, both talking therapies, waiting times targets, were significantly down on where they needed to be previously, but both now being sustainably achieved. These are one among those that have been flagged up by the ICB about the improvements that we need to use the system. So it's pretty important that we are achieving that sustainable, but as I talked about this earlier on. Also in terms of out of area, it's important, this isn't just out of area. It's also about non-contracted and non-funded beds as well. So there's a number of beds that are currently used that are, although they're within area, it gives a financial pressure. So it's another crisis that surrounds us. So we have to make sure we're doing both parts of it. It's not just the out of area, but the overall financial position as well. Now, the out of area part that is in the report, Vanessa's commented, that has come down significantly, although it does bring it down. We have got significant problems on the funding of those beds, the additional ones that are in area that aren't funded. Now, we're addressing that as part of an overall financial improvement plan at the ICS level. So, if you like, we're doing both. We're doing something about urgent care. It's really important we do stuff on one side here. They're not separate, they fit together. So all the things you described earlier on in terms of how long people stay in A&E before they move across, why they're missing in the first place, all that type of stuff, we're trying to address all that part going through, and it also will pick up the clinically ready for discharge and all those relevant things as well. So as part of the overall improvement plan, it's an ICS, the two parts of both acute and cells, looking at those alternative areas where people can go to, being addressed systematically. The problem is, if we look at them all as individual items, we miss the point. We've really got to get the baseline information to rather than collect all these separate things. We need a single set of data that we can see to know at all level what's going on, actually see what's going through. Alongside these audits that have been done quite recently, we've been snowed up by different audits. We've agreed with UHB, they're going to give us ongoing baseline information about the patients going in there, so we can use that to actually monitor going through. Alongside that, as part of the improvement work, financial improvement work, KPMG are providing support to the ICS across the piece, so we're drawing this all together. So it means that all the things about clinically ready for discharge and the non-contracted beds, all that needs to be taken as a whole, rather than looking at separate pieces going through. So we will be bringing the detail of that programme back, including the KPIs and work alongside. So it's drawing all the things that Vanessa talked about over a period of time together, so we've got a coherent piece. We are able to describe, actually, we've got to treat mental health inpatient and acute inpatient very similarly at the minute. Focused all on A&E and all sorts of things, should be the two parts together and running alongside. So we've got to make that work properly. That was described in the discussion in FPP. Also, now a couple of the other parts. One of the key measures we've been on for a long period of time is about follow-up when people are discharged and are on CPA care programme approach. The CPA 7-day follow-up has been a historic measure, but it is being moved across to 3-day follow-up. The 7-day standard, we're not achieving as we should be, but the 3-day, we are achieving that standard, and that's the one that's been sustained, and that is also the more important one. There is mention about Dialogue Plus in the cost of that. That will have an impact because it changes the nature of whether it's CPA or otherwise. Just the other two parts that were in that, those long-term failure issues, were about full review within the last 12 months. It's now reliably in the 90%. So again, we've achieved that sustainable improvement. Referrals over 3 months with no contact does remain high, but mitigation is in place to avoid the risk of that. So it's really flagging up that those things that were identified probably a year ago are now much better places to sustain themselves. Going on, we also talked about within FPP some of the other domains because we were concerned that some of the discussion of the other committees don't necessarily take into account some of the details in the dashboard. So I think the work flagged up are, although the overall position on vacancies is improving, it's very high at 30% of acute and urgent care and 14% in ICCR, but notably, specialties is running at 4%, so it shows you've got this huge divergence. But even at 4%, there's in specialties, that includes 16% in Birmingham Homes. So you've got this variation. So the concern there was, is people committing picking up that level of detail, or where is that getting picked up? If I just focus on vacancies in isolation, we potentially miss that. There was also a bit in terms of, on the quality side, The physical restraints were high this month, 343. Nearly half of it are in acute and urgent care. It's understandable that it's that type of thing being picked up, and it's probably just make sure these games are not committed. Similar incidents of self-harm were also quite high at 233. So it's really important that we get this interplay between the different committees to make sure these are getting picked up. So that's pretty much what we talked about that. Also, in terms of just describing the deep dives that we do now, in response to what's been asked before, each of those deep dives with individual service areas would also include benchmarking information and waiting times where appropriate. So we can bring that through. That was a request that came through from both an internal report and previous communicator. So those are implemented in there. That would also be supplemented by a review of the leadership team in each of those areas to go alongside it. And also picking up the last point, picking up what Vanessa talked earlier on about, it's in the statutory recovery, there was this detailed review we did. It's also called intensive community rehab team. So this is about reducing people who are out of area and not neglected, but out of mind. Significant improvement that we've already described, but what we haven't played up there is probably millions of pounds saved for the system. I think it was estimated about 6 million. Now that, in fairness, is a commissioner's statement rather than ours. It's important to remember the system approach. And this second phase going on was what was reviewed during this last one. That's also been approved. It will be similarly saving millions of pounds, but more importantly, it's patients as well. So it's really important we pick up that. It's a real successful transformation, the way that we've talked about several times. How do we get those type of things working on an ongoing basis, improve patient care, but also driving down the cost? It's not one of you have to do both. Don't know if you want to add anything on those.
Don't think I can do. You've got the job. Yeah, I mean, it's a good summary. I think the deep dives are working really well. You know, and really sort of bringing up sort of, you know, concerns and also the ask of support, which we just as well. You know, huddling around the leadership team, so they can showcase the work that they're doing as well. So it's nice to see them do that.
I've got a couple of things, and then one will be on the hand of Linda, and it was the ask from Dave's report in relation to mentions focused on restraints and whether that has actually been picked up at the Quality and Patient Experience Committee. So I don't know respond to that.
I mean, the whole sort of acuity around the inpatient services in terms of what we know in terms of the benchmarking, we have a low number of beds that patients are admitted under our wards and more likely to be on the Mental Health Act. We're not actually an outlier in terms of having lots of patients who are clinically ready for discharge. Actually, doesn't mean we shouldn't be working on that. So we are looking at particularly deep dive into inappropriate admissions because there's been some significant risks in the inpatient services in recent months in relation to those admissions, particularly the ones around the secure pathway and the RCP issues. So there's a lot there, and we're looking at it. I mean, my question was actually around how we're managing. I'm thinking about what we're doing with the dementia services and the waiting well and that piece of work that we're doing around that. Are we doing similar with the adult CMHT waiters? Are we actually having contact, individual personal contact with those people that are on our waiting list for the CMHTs? But what's that look like, those mitigating and managing that waiting list?
Strongly wrong. I think you've got two parts. The most significant number is in terms of the neuropsychiatry.
Yeah.
So we've got less in the areas that we see in the standard understanding that through. The two areas that we've been focused on a long period of time, those CMHC and doing those go through, and satisfying that the services have got a handle on that. So the metric you've got here isn't what they use to drive through. So in every case, we're just assured that then being looked after carefully and not lost isn't suffering.
I think that's the best we're doing, absolutely. Yeah, you know, and if people are feeling like, you know, really unwell, there's access to duty. So again, phoning into the hub, you know, and being seen sort of quicker if need be. That's an option also. As well as sort of, you know, tapping into other services that are delivered and supported by the voluntary sector. You know, so there are talking spaces, 111, trying to sort of use other options and support around that. But they do have a plan around, you know, what is on offer, how people can access that, as opposed to waiting for the next outpatient appointment in 6 months' time. Let's try and bring that forward. And people have got risk assessments as well around all of that.
So an individual patient would, if they felt they needed more than the GP, they would have had some communication with someone in a mental health setting, whether it's one of our partners or the crisis team.
Yeah.
So they would be able, they know how to, they know where they can go.
Yeah, that's what they're working on.
No, that's great.
Yeah, thank you. I've got four hands up, so just need to keep your responses sort of stints. There's Patrick and Winston and Lisa and Thomas.
I'll remember the sequence. So quickly, just to respond to Dave's comment around the workforce. So what the people community we see is a breakdown by profession and by division, but not in terms of individual teams who might be outliers. As there is some expectation of 3 FPPs in divisions picking that up. But I think what I'll take away is how can we report some of those exceptions into the committee.
Great, brilliant. Thank you, Patrick. Winston.
Yeah, a couple of weeks ago I went along to the NHS Providers Conference and the Secretary of State talked about introduction of league tables, because providers like seeing these. I'd like to know where we see in relation to, if the clock stopped as of now, where do we see in relation to the tiers? They describe 4 tiers, don't they? 1 being the best, 2 being inadequate, 3 being requires improvement, 4 is think about your job next week kind of thing. Where do we sit, first part? The second part is, do we know where we sit and what's our plan for moving up to the next tier?
So it depends on what measures are used.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's, for mental health in particular, the data isn't great, it isn't uniform across the mental health sector. And that's one of the things that will have to be looked at first before they can think about what does the maintain look like for us. But at the moment, we would be measured on, so it depends on what they look at. So a lot of what you're seeing in this report are the things that we're not measured on.
Yeah.
And so, out of area placements, we're seen as being an outlier but in an improving position. With access to psychological therapies, we're seen as an outlier but with an improving position. So they're 2 examples, and they're 2 of the biggies that are in there. What we're also going to see are things like our length of stay, so we've had that conversation. What's getting in the way of our length of stay, and what's the plan we've got around that. So we would be judged as being knowing where we sit, but also having a plan and working with partners around what that plan looks like.
Yeah, just adding that. So that's why I mentioned the talking therapist. So that's one of the ones that RTP's back up to us. So we as a trust sustainably better now than we were before. They've asked us to comment on that getting through. It is just picking those elements, as you said. It's just doing that monitoring through. Until we're clear about it, we don't know.
Yeah, because he talked about publishing these league tables literally this month.
Yeah, so I
think
think
wanting to take action. I mean, we know what politicians are like. They'll want to do that, whether the data's right or not. They'll put us in a category.
So I think the publication bit is going to be focused on things that might come out through the planning round, which are elective care, urgent and emergency care rates, ambulance handovers. They're the things that they're going to be publishing very early, and the work going on in the background around what are the metrics that are consistent and that will measure for other sectors.
Yeah, because this report's a really good one in terms of how we're doing when we look at ourselves, but we've not really got much comparative as to how we're doing against others, I think. You've always been a bit critical.
The benchmark is that you do on the deep dive, that's all.
Yeah.
So we have got quite a lot of benchmarking information about mental health to describe where we are.
Yeah.
I think what's already been said is we haven't got the same number of beds as the population as elsewhere, we've got lower. We haven't got, as you said there, the length of stay is longer, but the readmission conversely is much lower. So you've got this actually, would you, as soon as someone stays a bit longer, but they do come back in, or do you want to get people out and then come back in? It's how you get the combination of both understand it and explain what's the improvement journey you're doing about it.
I guess what I'm looking at is, I'd like us to see the overall combination of those metrics, the ones that we've already described. Length of stay, clinically ready for discharge, out of area placements, the other things. See that combination in this report or another report. And says, this is where we are now, this is where we're aiming to get to, what's our trajectory towards getting there. And that, this report kind of describes where we are now really, really well, and our deep dives really, really well. I'm very happy and assured with that. But in terms of how we moving forward with those metrics. Yes, it is, and I think as a board as well, because we're going to be, if we believe the Secretary of State, we'll be judged on, all right, you happen to be in Division 1 or 2. What are you doing about it? And I think as a board, it'd be good to be kind of a little bit ahead of the game.
There is a single oversight framework now that went to FPP going through exactly that. So at the overall level, there's a rating for the entire system, including yourselves, that includes financials. Level 3.
Level 3.
Possibly change now. That's always going to
that was segmentation.
So there's a number of measures that we can't set, all of which. So I think the point that you're making is we need to ask finance and performance to determine, do they think they are focusing in enough on the recovery plans in the areas where they're at? And that, I think that's the question for finance and performance around, are we therefore getting through to board and through the committee a good assurance around where we aren't doing so well, what the plan is, and when we're likely to get there. So we know as a board, for example, that out of area placements, finance and performance have done a really good job of kind of doing deep dives into that, really focusing in on what is the plan, where are we heading with it. So I think that's the question for finance and performance.
Just pause the question, and sorry, Lisa and Thomas, take any more questions on this paper, but what I will say, just in relation to the paper, I found it really, really helpful, just the layout, the summary report draws your attention to the key, the key domains and the metrics, and then for you to actually go further into the report to get back greater detail. I thought it was great. So, is it Richard that got this? Was it you, Dave?
You have to ask when the ideas
Or was it Tina? Or was it even you, Belle? Whoever it is. All I'm saying is, I loved the way that it's actually compiled and actually drew your attention very clearly and succinctly, and then where you need to go for further information if you wanted that detail.
That's what we talked about. It was about just trying to make sure we use this to get to the questions to ask.
Excellent. Well done. Thank you for that. Team and Val. And I think the reason why I'm mentioning that is actually it's helpful in terms of all of the reports. If you can just draw our attention to the key salient points that you want us to actually be cognizant of, be mindful of. Obviously, we'll read the rest of the report because we may find other things in there, but it just helps us to focus on. So thank you all. Okay, we're going to move on, and we've got the QPAS Participation Experience Assurance Report from Linda, and Linda, if you could just draw our attention to the key salient points, and just take it as read, and then if there are any subsequent questions.
Thank you. We've had 2 committee meetings since the last board, so I'm going to be really succinct and just refer to the last one because it covers a lot of the previous one. I'd like to pick up on how busy our committee meetings are, but actually we're planning a sort of separate committee visits to sites. So we've got a site visit to the committee next week. I'm actually going to one of a couple of the Solid Health Services. So we're taking the committee out because the committee session is just too full sometimes to do. We had to stand down one of the staff stories last time because the agenda was just so full. So we're just adding in an in-between visit, which I think is going to be really helpful. Just to alert really that we've talked again about a lot of these issues today, but that there has been an increase in staffing capacity for nurses. However, we need to be mindful of the inexperience and the need for training and development, and then there's a staff nurse development programme in place, which is going to be really important. So that, you know, we've got more nurses, but we've got to be mindful that they are relatively inexperienced. We are aware of the Section 64 letter around our Zinnia Centre, and again there are issues within that relate to staff competencies around ILS. So again, that really important aspect of applied learning and knowledge and training. Picking up on some of the concerns around acuity and risk in the inpatient settings, we are noticing that there's an increase in harm, and that continues to increase. And that seems to be linked to the way we're now reporting harm in relation to psychological harm, for instance, to both patients and staff. And we've got a deep dive plan, I think it's reported in January, into that change. We are still concerned about the risks in relation to the right care, right person, and we're going to continue to look at that on a regular basis. We've also got the PSERF is also being really helpful as the patient safety framework in picking up some of those risks in real time, and we're looking at quite proactive steps from that in terms of looking at inappropriate admissions and the impact of that and how to prevent that, but also some of the other issues that people raised today about increasing restraints is also linked into that pathway. Probably, I don't need to say any more, actually, probably. Yeah, that's the only 6 months.
Are there any questions? No? Okay, brilliant, thank you. And then the next report is really for noting, it's not actually for discussion, and that's Safeguarding Animal Report by Lisa. So can I just ask, are there any questions for Lisa in relation to that? Lisa, do you want to say anything?
Could I just say that just a couple of things.
Yeah.
Firstly, the context in which we are fulfilling our statutory responsibilities around safeguarding, which we are in a very proactive way, early implementation of working together within the national framework. But across our city, the health inequalities, the impacts of COVID and the cost of living, and the impact that those have on social isolation, homeschooling children out of sight, and domestic abuse and other drivers of really difficult situations that often we then care for the people in our trust who are the victims and others involved in this care. We're seeing through the Think Family approach that we've adopted across the trust some really good staff understanding and responses to these very important safeguarding issues. And I review all of the eclipses related to safeguarding that comes through the trust, and we're seeing some exceptional referrals into the safeguarding multi-agency frame around some of the things along our perinatal pathways, but also things related to adult and children patients that we're looking after and their families that are really important to address as partners. Partnership working really effective between police, local authority and health as 3 statutory partners, and we have strengthened governance in place now across both the city and the boroughs, so communication on a relational level, really effective. All of our safeguarding professionals now gone through a master's programme that we co-produced with the University of Birmingham 2 years ago. So Jess Phillips speaks on that in terms of domestic abuse. I do a little piece on it, but lots of other guest speakers do some really good work in that space. So we've got some very highly trained now safeguarding professionals across the city and suburb, and I think Mel and her team do an absolutely exemplary job. Whenever I go out to service, the first thing I hear is that people have seen Mel and the team, how responsive they are, how helpful they are, and that people really feel that not just do they make a report, but they get feedback that something's been done. And I think that's so important in terms of how we close the loop, that this remains a very difficult, very intense context in which to operate. So I think it was just worth
Thank you, Lisa. Well done as well. Actually, it's really a lot of critical work that's been undertaken as well, and it's good to actually see what's actually happening, and also being able to look at the safeguard safeguarding as well. So thank you for that. Very appreciative. We're going to move on to the next report, which is the Medical Director's annual report. Again, this isn't necessarily for discussion, but it's I don't think we just want to highlight some key points from that.
Just to say that, as you know, we have a large number of doctors and the number of recruitments have increased as have the reduction in agency doctors, which is really positive. We do also have a high turnover of doctors, and a lot of these are due to career progression, which is again very good news, and in the more lower grades, training grades, resident doctors and those grades. So Medical Directorate Manager Kerry Rowley and my Deputy Medical Director Imran, they've been very busy with managing all the appraisal, revalidation, and we meet regularly to discuss this. I just would like to say that since this report has been written, we have now got a confirmation that we will be having a peer review. This is something we've been wanting to do, so we found another trust and we do a reciprocal peer review, which will be helpful to keep our standards looked at. So I don't have anything in detail, but happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Thanks for being there. I don't think there is any questions. You do, doing great work. We, myself and Rashid, we were at the Medical Advisory Committee last week. Away day, sorry. Last week, yeah, which was absolutely fantastic. And it was good to see the numbers that are engaging and coming out and how they're actually feeling more part of the trust and all of the work that we've been doing to galvanise, and obviously there's a new chair as well, the Medical Advisory Committee. Can't remember the name. Yeah. But it was great, and it was great to see. So thank you. For that.
Yeah, just one thing. Again, apologies. Just the fact that I'm not probably personal to this. It'd be good to just get an indicator in terms of whether this report is a positive report or an indifferent report. I just don't know at the end of the day. And I think, what it says, 38 job plans requiring completion out of 234 doctors, of which 52% are still incomplete. I don't know whether I should be worried or what.
No, that's a good question. And a lot of these reports from all trusts are available to see online. So we do compare our report with other reports, and actually our standards are higher. Most of the challenges we have in relation to job plans are similar to other trusts. The good news is that we have improved from last year for job plans, but we still have a way to go, and we're very much aware of that and working closely with all our clinical leads and clinical directors. In terms of the appraisal numbers, we are really excellent and better than any other trust. So we know the areas where we are very good, and we know the areas we need to improve, but overall there is an improvement. So thank you.
I was smiling when you were asking it because I was going to say it, but now you said that, I thought I ought to, was that in the key issues and risks, for example, we've got this point about we need to restructure the team in order to be able to have the capacity. Actually, it's a really good news story that we had to do that. It's because we've recruited and got more than 30 doctors than we've ever had previously. So whilst it's in here as a sort of key issue, it's a consequence of something really good happening.
Sort of drawing that out somehow.
Yeah, so there is something about the celebratory nature of the front end. It's not just the kind of key issues.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Thanks, Fabida. We're going to move on to the next committee escalation assurance report, which is People Committee. I don't need to repeat what's been said to everybody, Sue, so what's kind of over to you.
Thank you, Chair. I'll take the meeting, the buffers read for this board meeting. People Committee had its last meeting on the 20th of November, and some of the areas of concern that was alerted was around staffing, which has been mentioned a few times in today's board meeting. We have seen a reduction in vacancy rates across the trust. However, there is still concerns around the number of skilled staff that we have at band 6 and above. There is work being done to address this in a skill and look at development around some of band 5s into 6, and this is also being monitored regularly by the Safety Staffing Committee as well. The committee was concerned about bank usage not being reduced at pace in comparison to the number of agency staff. There has been a slight reduction in the number of bank staff that's been used across the organisation. However, the committee did ask for further assurance that this trajectory will continue and look at how we can pick up pace in that reduction as well. Overall sickness has also reduced from 6.1 to 5.4 in October. The committee does remain concerned about the health and well-being of our staff, as the top reported reason for our sickness absence is around stress, anxiety and depression. There is 5 clinics being held around whether those reasons for this area of sickness is related to culture, or if it's related to acuity of the patients that are being admitted into some of our clinical areas. And we'll be monitoring that as we go forward to see where some of those issues are, but also look at how our HR clinics can support return to work conversations around some of those sicknesses. The committee was assured in regards to how we're delivering on our people strategic goals, and a term of reference for the people committee was also approved subject to minor amendments, and the committee also received assurance on positive health and equalities work that is being done across the trust. This is now being reported into all the other committees on a quarterly basis, so we can triangulate health inequalities throughout all the committees and have that as a golden thread that runs through our strategic delivery objectives. I think I'm going to stop there in regards to everything else on the paper, and take that as read and ask if anyone's got any questions.
Are there any questions? Or still, Patrick?
It's an observation, actually. So, Chief Committee update reports have made reference to staff wellbeing and psychological harm came up in relation to and this one around staff wellbeing as well. I thought that that's a particular area of concern that we have to.
Yeah, so we do get reports through our staff wellbeing steering group to bring things from that point in terms of how we be more focused, potentially looking at our how deep dives and things to reports in that area. I just wanted to quickly highlight where Sue referred to health inequalities, that one of the reports that came to the committee was demonstrating that 2 years ago when we started on the journey of reflecting on our data about leadership and representation, we were around 19%, and the report that we received at the committee was showing that we're now at 30% in terms of representation. And that was a commitment that we made, that we wanted to be aligned to the communities that we serve. So really good news in terms of the progress that we're making.
Excellent. That's great. It'd be good to have that reflection of health inequalities, not just from the people committee, but also how it's actually factored in the FPP and also in QPES as well. So we can, as Sue mentioned, have that triangulation that we are actually making a difference in this area. And actually it is a focused area, not just in one particular domain around people, but actually it's around our finances and it's also around quality, how addressing health inequalities in relation to that. So that's just that golden theme running through. I think we did say as well that at some point we would have, I don't know if it's through yourself, would be a report around what we wanted twice a year, didn't we? So we hopefully will get to see that and the impact and the difference that we're making in terms of reducing health inequalities. from a local perspective as well.
It's tabled for the February board.
Oh, there you go. Brilliant, thank you. Thanks to Patrick for that. We're going to move on to the Guardian of Safe Working Hours report.
Might be able to start.
So let's break 5 minutes. I'm ready to do
Look at us. It's like how appropriate when you throw something.
This is the next quarter, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't think it's good. I don't remember that.
He didn't
think it was.
Yes.
So that was the fourth one.
I don't think the to contribute if there's a paper, I'm happy to present it, but I don't know if it's the same paper that was already presented.
Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of August or.
Is it due today? Yeah. He's not here. He's not there.
It's there and it's sent it. I just go and check if you signed it. No, it's not.
So August 41 was for the computer and this one is 22, so they are different. Oh,
Yeah.
connotations.
I was like, he's too happy outside.
The meeting was all relaxed.
Hi everyone.
Harry, if you can just take the report as read that we've read, just draw our attention to
The key points.
Yes, please.
Yeah, no worries. The kind of summary of today's report is from Q2 for the Guardian of Safe Working. There were no immediate safety concerns raised during this quarter. Exception report rates have increased with 32 unique exception reports during this quarter. 22 out of the 32 were related to overtime. 2 fines have been levied against the class 4 breaches in safe working hours. Number of reports carried forward has decreased significantly down to 4. The number of vacant shifts continues to be high but stable, with gaps particularly on the ST or the East Rosa. The majority of the gaps were due to vacancies. That's
Well, that was lovely. So let me just are there any queries on the report now?
Yeah, much to the same point I made on the previous report. However, it's great. I'm not necessarily close to the detail, but this isn't really sort of. I'm not really sure whether I should be worried or not. I know you start off by saying no safety concerns were raised, of course, which is great, but then you've just said exception reports have increased. Well, what does that mean? We're also talking about number of vacant shifts and vacancy posts remain high. Certainly from a finance perspective, that's an issue in terms of how we then deploy bank. So overall, I'm not really sure. I'm not getting a feeling in terms of whether I should be worried or not worried.
It kind of depends what your concerns are, I guess. I think so. If you look at the numbers, so there's 32 exception reports in this quarter, but there's 144 doctors, resident doctors in the trust during that time. So what I think this probably represents is huge underreporting, because are we saying that during that 3-month period, only 1 in 4 doctors had a single shift where they overworked their hours? That seems highly unlikely to me. So I'm not worried about there being my worry about there being 32 exception reports is it probably highlights a lack of engagement with the process. And actually, if our doctors are working above their hours because there's been an emergency, because someone's come in late in the day and they need to be clocked in and they've worked an extra hour and a half, they should be getting payment or toil in response to that. So that's my concern about the number of exceptional reports.
So that's really great. So I guess maybe the next time the report needs to focus, well, okay, what are we doing on the engagement piece then? To then actually surface whether there is an issue or not, perhaps. I don't know.
And we also take the results of the GMC survey of all our doctors in training, and we will then correlate these things, and that's when we have a person in the role who then goes to those areas, talks to those doctors and the other doctors in that area to see how they can be supported, and that's been done a few times. So I agree that actually reporting it is a positive from our side.
I think, Harry, I think instinctively you know where to look.
Yes.
And I think it's just maybe drawing it out into this report. I think then we can have we can then have a more constructive conversation about how we can support you to make things better.
Just a follow-up. So are we, so just look at the report, it seems to be that's all right, but how are we comparing to ourselves a year before or is the trend pattern getting better? Is it getting worse?
Exception reports have increased compared to where they were historically. But they're still, again, it's really difficult to compare data with data. We can compare with ourselves, but what we know is historically the system wasn't working and people weren't using it. One of the ways this is highlighted is actually, so in the last report that I had to send to the lead employer for our GP trainees, they got back to me because in the last quarter we had 0 exception reports from any GP trainee in the entire quarter. So they wrote to me to say, how is this possible that you had 0 exception reports?
It's a good place to be, that is, in a way, in some ways. They said, well, how could you possibly do that? Because you must be doing something right or something drastically wrong.
Yeah.
What was the answer? Was it?
So I asked, because obviously with the GP employer, they're employed in lots of other, across trusts all across the country, but different types of trusts. So I said, I asked them whether we're an outlier compared to other mental health trusts, and they said no, but I think they weren't necessarily satisfied with that, but at the same time, because we weren't an outlier compared to other mental health trusts, they couldn't.
I don't know the questions from Harry. Thank you for coming along.
Thanks very much.
For being the last week, so congratulations.
Congratulations. Thank you, everyone. Take care. Bye.
So, on to the finance and performance and productivity. All from there.
I'll take the reports as read, 2 meetings since the last board. Just in summary, we've got assurance around our year-end trajectory to close to £2 million surplus. That said, we're not going to do that without having to rely on balance sheet savings and non-recurrent savings to make up the deficiency in terms of our delivery on cost improvement programs. We've talked about the ongoing challenges around how to vary spend. Our bank spend is not coming down at the rate at which vacancies are being filled. Now that could be just a lag, but it'd be interesting to see how that, the two sort of work together on that. And I think it's a discussion we had with people as well as an FPP as well. Our agency spend has significantly come down, which is great work by the trust overall, so excellent work there. Dave talked about the financial recovery plan, which is being driven from a systems perspective, which is great, which really starts to focus on the end-to-end flow of patients. That said, we still don't have the assurance we need from a committee perspective in terms of how we will achieve our sort of current cost savings for 25, 26 and beyond. And it's an ever-increasing challenge as we get closer to the end of the year. Whilst we might have a good trajectory to the end of the financial year, what's that going to look like into the next financial year? And the sort of the apparent lack of opportunity around recurrent savings is a concern. So that's a piece of assurance that we'll be looking for going forward. Lots of areas of assurance, lots of activity around our business development partnerships. Winter planning has come to FPP a couple of times now, and we're assured around the performance metrics that we're underpinning that now. We're moving to a new cyber assurance framework, which will raise the bar even further beyond what we're already doing, which is great. And I think it's important to recognise the work, I think we've discussed it, around the specific improvements we're doing around the services that we've discussed through the integrated performance reporting as well. And we received our strategic drivers an update on that, on how we're progressing that, and we've received some good assurance around those as well. So that's about it. Happy to take questions.
Couple from me, just you mentioned the cyber assurance report that's going to come, which is absolutely fantastic. Does the committee get an opportunity to look at what AI opportunities there are available that can help in relation to?
So we had a specific deep dive on all things digital, separate to SCP and specifically to FPP members, and Carl B presented what good could look like. But I think we need to triangulate that with the work that we're doing, for instance, in the PI space, strategy, how that's going to sort of embrace digital. And we did decide, and I think David, please correct me if I'm wrong, that we're going to try and create some time in a board development session where we can start to bring that together. I think the timing is going to be right around when we start or ensuring the work around the strategy refresh, for instance, but also I think there's a lot of opportunity from a bottom-up perspective around the work that we're doing in July that can really sort of bring that opportunity forward, I think. But I think it's just bringing all of those moving parts together. But yes, short answer, yes.
And I'm going to dovetail that with, you mentioned about CIP, and I was thinking with regards to that not being as great as anticipated. Do you feel going into the next financial year that you've already identified areas, possibly plans that actually can be delivered?
So, those two things, not where we want it to be, but in both cases, delivery this year and expectation of next year better than it's been in previous years, so that's good. The over-reliance on technical and non-recruitment is harder than we want it to be, so that's bad, but that's nothing new. We've got to do much more, like we described earlier about this integrated community we have. That makes that schedule, because that's a real system change for our identified levels. If we manage to address the uncontracted bed at the bank staffing, that will wipe out our problem. However, it's intractable, it's difficult, and you are dependent, as we heard earlier on, about all the behind factors for making that system work through. What we also need to do on a service by service basis is really go for that service, where we want to end up, given the 10-year plan, everything we're trying to do with that service, what should good look like, and how to digital enable that. At the minute, it feels like we deliver services and we understand there's some improvements, but we don't really get into actually that's where we want to be. I think Val's absolutely right. The strategic piece should describe 5 years out or whatever, what should that look like? How can we reduce depending on the staff? Or make sure staff are adding value where only they can, and or conditions only add value where they can. I think we've got to get into that really critically on the service by service basis to the problem. And I think that opportunity, that strategy is a real opportunity we have to seize that as opposed to just say that we don't care.
I agree with everything Dave said, but I guess, put my committee chair hat on, I don't have that assurance today, if you ask me that honestly. And then at the same time, in parallel, we need to look at our services. We're actually taking on new services. So I think we need to look at we come to the fact of the sort of potential impact that they might have in terms of what we might be inheriting, in terms of people, processes, service delivery, and the consequences of how that might impact our bottom line, I suppose. So there's a lot of, using the phrase moving parts, but yeah, to try and go over.
And I suppose when you think about the efficiencies and cost savings, they actually often come about as a byproduct of an intent to improve other aspects of policy as well. So that has to be taken into the mix.
And that's one of the areas where we recognise that we make an improvement. So we had a big session this week with our senior leadership team around financial pressures and plans for this year. But an acknowledgement about the points that David made, which is that actually what we delivered this year has been better than we delivered previously, and much of that has been about a byproduct of work that we need to do to make improvements. And again, that's an improvement position.
The reason why I mention that is because we as a system, we're under significant pressure to actually, make savings and come up with some real credible plans that are deliverable as well, and how this is actually getting picked up in the FPP now and monitoring that. But I understand some of the factors that are slightly out of our control.
That's what we did to help others like UHB.
Yes.
And their staffing issue was a real issue. If we were able to help with the and address the staffing costs in A&E, about 10 million quid. It makes a significant difference. Our ability to enable change within the system, I think we just really like that. I think other people recognise it, but they don't. And this is where there was a discussion almost about, you look to those that have been stretched even more in the FPP, but our ability to change, given the commissioners as well, is significant. It's caused that to work across. How do you do it system-wide as opposed to look to us and look to them? Yeah. Honestly.
Yeah, I mean, I think we talked about the pressures more broadly in other areas already, but there's a couple of things I want to emphasise. It just means that the CRFD is double really what it was 18 months ago, and that inherently causes pressure. We've also got a higher number of patients who have not been seen in 3 months in no contact. So I don't know whether or not that's more specialism or not. But also the profile of our area, while much better in the last quarter, is still relatively in the same position as we were this time last year. So recognising those compound factors that might be difficult to maintain our other area position for quarter 4. There's a couple of things I wonder just in terms of planning. Are we worried about that? And have we got additional resources that can support review all the other area patients who are really good assessors that can bring them into the area back faster potentially? Because I know some of our provisions are possibly less dynamic than we would like in terms of provision. And also then, given the staffing pressures, how we might manage acute discharges back in the community and maintain those gains we've made within 3-day review.
Who answer that question to?
So many questions in there. I'll answer the ones I can answer. So just going back to clinical ready for discharge, the criteria changed about a year, 18 months ago. So it used to be called, delayed discharge, clinical ready for discharge, different criteria. We've done a lot of work with the divisions to make sure they're recording that properly. They've got the criteria now, and it's a good thing to report, as opposed to, oh my gosh, I don't want to tell anybody, because if we know, we can do something about it. So we're seeing a significant increase in reporting, which is a good thing. So that's positive, that we're actually showing, what our challenges potentially. What we're also doing in the patient flow programme meeting is we're looking at them on a weekly basis, the clinical ready for discharge, and we're also looking at the discharges. So we've been seeing over the last couple of weeks the amount of people who've been discharged or the amount of people who've been put back on the list. So you can see week by week, day by day, how that's working and operating. So that's good to see that. Last week was significantly different though. We didn't have enough discharges and we had more people put on. So it almost changes week by week as we report. So that's one thing to note there. better reporting, but we've got sometimes really good discharges. We had 10 a couple of weeks ago, we've only had a few last week, and that varies from ward to ward around, you know, the complexity, etc. So that's, we're keeping a real close eye on that. People out of area, again, as we sort of noted, you know, inappropriate out of area, we're not too bad around, but it's the non-contracted beds in area that is really our cost pressure. Probably not so bad from a clinical and outcome experience for service users because they're within our system or within Birmingham and Solihull, so care coordinators and discharge managers can go and visit them, as opposed to being up in Scotland, for example, where, you know, you haven't got line of sight, etc. Some of those beds we have in a contract, which our colleagues at Birmingham Women's and Children's hold, and we have nurses that go and visit service users and have them part of those reviews. Bida helpfully has also got, I think it's Imran, who's got some oversight of people out of area as well. So there's a bit more of a medical, clinical challenge saying this person needs to be brought back now, as opposed to some of our providers maybe saying, you know, let's keep them a little bit longer. Because we know when people come back, we can, you know, support better and discharge back into the community. So there's a lot of that work going on, sort of, you know, day in and day out, supporting our discharge managers with that, as well as having more sort of stronger clinical oversight. Working in the localities as well, it's not just people thinking about, you know, I've got clinically ready for discharge people and people who may potentially need a bed. We're trying them to look wider. So today, have you got many people in ED that potentially you might need to look at being admitted? Have you got people in other systems? Because we have people who go to London, all over the country as well, which, you know, people have been escalating in ED departments, again, that we need to bring back to Birmingham and Solihull, either into PDU or into a bed. So we've got to look at all of that as well, and including that data are people clinically ready for discharge all around in all these other beds. So it's almost like, you know, can you discharge somebody into home treatment? Does that person need to come in? Can you bring this person back? We feel people on the ground connected with those service users in that locality are the best people to manage that. And for Bida and I, the senior leadership team, try and help and enable that work to happen. So that's a bit of a sort of an oversight of what's happening from that meeting. We're also very, very mindful, if you just focus on acute and urgent care and out of area, it's wider, and we're trying to take that real pathway approach. So we've engaged our clinicians, etc., from a community ICCR perspective and older adults in those conversations as well, around how we prevent people, going back to, you know, the 10-year plan, how we prevent people coming into crisis in the first place, potentially needing a bed. How can we and what can we do in the localities? Seeing people earlier, so trying to do that prevention piece as well. We've had some funding for a couple of nurses that should start in a couple of weeks' time, who work in the community mental health teams, but will be in reaching to EDs as well, because we're seeing people who are coming to EDs that are known to us, that haven't been seen for a while and are coming into crisis. So how can we prevent and bring people out of the ED, support them so that, you know, that crisis doesn't happen again? So there's so many elements to this that we're actually trying to monitor and again look at the impacts of these, and it links, like you said earlier, back to the winter plan as well, because a lot of these things you see there, what we're doing as part of winter planning, they're all very much integral. You know, and it's not just acute and urgent care and our doctors and nurses there and wider. It's a system, and it's all the operational areas need to have a role in this.
Completely agree.
Yeah.
I don't want to take up any more time here, but I suppose what my main point would be, Vanessa, is there's a lot of sub-metrics that need to be explored more to understand these intricate pressures.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I would say in relation to what you said, recognising reducing the pressure over time, is despite the fact the IAPT access over 6 weeks and 12 weeks is great. What we've also had a significant reduction in the allowable recovery rate at the same time, 58% from 75%. So why is that happening? And is that putting pressure down on the same issues? I don't know the answer. And the same with the bank, you know, the bank figure is static. But is that more because it's still in the kit that we're using more of it? I just can't tell from what we're doing. There's a bit of caution, so we're going to go into more detail.
Good point. Thank you so much.
So can we take that back as those points which Thomas has raised as an action, Vanessa? look into.
Yeah, bring some report out.
And report back.
Yeah, FPP, Val's,
Val's
yeah, Val's asked for a deep dive and just some more assurance around the productivity plan, so we'll do a presentation there and try and bring that through that.
Just say this triangulation at the back, because I understand that there's a plan that we're going to talk about, we're talking about the bank stuff anyway, and it's how these fit together. So I think it's much more aligned with these as well. It's about how we make sure we get this quality people and sustainability in the same space. That's really good.
Great, brilliant. Thank you. Sorry, I forgot the question. Any other questions for that? No, good. Okay, sorry, not good. Thank you. We're going to move on to Dave.
So, quite a couple of things that I think it's notable that the amount of saving on agency is the best achievement in these. It's among the best achievement I've seen in terms of agency. It shows the difference you can make. And it's not diminishing, it's not just in financial, it's in the whole range of things. It is important we recognise that the overall position, Birmingham solid. So a deficit of 77 million, which is 59 off, off plan. So we are on the radar. It's unclear exactly what that means at the minute. It is likely to be certainly not intervention, but close monitoring and close support elements certainly from NHS if we need to remain right for that. We are playing our part out, as I said, we're doing more around that. Anyone wants to say more about these elements?
So just, I mean, we've got our financial recovery board meeting on Friday, and that will be our opportunity to again look at where we are in the system and to consider more about what we hear with the regional team about levels of intervention. But we're certainly in a declining position as a system, not as a trust, but as a system.
I'll take any questions.
Yes. Are there any questions today?
Just a point of follow up really. So at the last FPP meeting we talked about the savings position for this year. And we've achieved the target, but a lot of that is dependent upon how we're doing measure the cash we've got in the bank and the interest receivable we've got. And then so the underlying position is that we haven't really identified or saving account measures which have got identified. I think in the report as well you make reference to 25-26. 2% requirement, and we've not really identified all of that yet, have we?
That's right.
So I think that's something we all need to do. My impression is that the NHS is moving towards expectation of greater savings in the long term. I think Amanda Pritchard, the NHS chief, talked about keeping the money under control and need to continue with innovation. You can read into that there probably may well be expecting 2 or 3% savings, as difficult as that might be. So I just really want to encourage us to, as much as possible, really start to implement the savings program. It's easy to be tough now, and it is later on when we've got this time. That's all we've just been looking at. And it's not just this trust, it's across the country.
Until we get planning guidance, it's a bit difficult. So we are pushing, actually, we have to push the feelings in the weeks to do that. We're further advanced than we have been previously. That's the new state of but it's around. We've got to build on that and set the towards the things that we've already rehearsed. Fully aware of that.
Are we aware of any potential industrial action or any claims just going forward? I think is something in the back of my mind.
For us?
Yeah, for us or just across the system. Yeah, because the system, because it rebounds back, doesn't it, to each other somewhere, and I'm just concerned that we're then asked to do more because other parts of the NHS may have to spend money.
It's difficult because at times you've got to work out how do you do right by people we can look at, as opposed to how do you help people around so that people can see it's about you've got to take the system versus approach to do that collectively.
And I think that we've got the reason why the planning guidance is so important for next year is for us to understand whether or not the position that we've been able to take for a few years to support more, because we've had very specific influence to growth in mental health. If that doesn't continue, our ability, and it may not continue to issue, our ability to provide additional support to the system.
Yeah, exactly. Final question is, because I mean, not long since we received the budget for next year, right? Well, not the budget, where the Chancellor of the Exchequer set out some things in the budget, and we know national insurance is going to be increasing. So just a quick question, are we assuming that that's going to be funded by the NHS Central? Or have we started doing work about setting out what could that look like for us as a cost pressure?
So an estimate cost pressure, I don't want it to sit here to stay with an estimate. The assumption will be, unless you know the right, that NHS will fund itself in those pressures. The difficulty there will be more on the commissioning side. You can have those pressures with a small voluntary sector organisation inevitably get on the road talking to us, suggest and talk about that in the commissioning committee.
Yes, sure.
And it's again, what do you do to really make sure it's both the system is sustainable with those people? How do you get them to do the right thing? What options give them to help themselves around that? So, for instance, the things that we can do better, rather than us do it all, how can we help them stand themselves around it? So I think it's more around that I'm concerned about. Yeah. We have to say the national insurance is taking everybody, as far as I say. And you have to manage it. How it's going to be managed, I'm not sure the NHS. Exactly.
No, just the point that, the assumptions that was made, because of the way the announcement was made, was that it would be funded in the eventual. So that comes to fruition to the county guidance.
Well, just wanted to make a point in your report about capital expenditure and also about the critical infrastructure. We were successful in getting Stevens. What's that going to be used for? It's not a great amount, is it?
No, well, it's in effect. The funding comes out from the ICB, so they'd already got an element that was available with the students, so you knew what we needed that for. It's things like backlog maintenance, this series of stuff. So there's some bits that we've already gone through around secure that supports that range of things around that. I won't go through the difficulty is when you've got 3 months left. You've got to do stuff that you really couldn't easy to do. So it's difficult to advance things. So when you get late announcements around that, it's really difficult. In addition, if BSOL doesn't achieve its revenue plans this year, revenue plans, the capital that is in next year is potentially threatened. So the danger is, can we advance any of that into this year? Our ability to spend money is really constrained by how long we've got to do. Because a lot of the work we talk about doors, etc., there's a lead time to it. There's the planning to it. It's been able to access without impacting on clinical activity, etc. So every time we go into the doors, we potentially shut them down beds for a period of time. But to get successful, literally, we could have taken a law, they would have given us laws, but we can't actually expand it.
Yeah, there are some quick things that we're doing, and I believe that's taking place at Rayside in relation to our series of things, our series of things, so just to make some improvements to that extent. Thank you, thanks for that, Dave. We're going to move on to the trust strategy, which has been seen by all of the committees and it is for them to involve everything. No pressure, Patrick.
Yeah, I'll be quick. So just a very quick summary for those who are not familiar with our strategy. We launched it in 2021, and each year we set goals against the strategic priorities, and we co-produce this with different teams and also with our experience. We're currently in year 4 delivery of our strategy, and we're now starting to think about a strategy refresh. And this report is in 2 parts. First part, which is an update on where we are against the goals that we've set out, and the second part is a timeline for strategy refresh. There are 3 goals that are highlighted as red in this report. The first one, which we have already discussed, under clinical services in terms of our area placement. The second one, which is around for people, we had set up an aim to reduce to increase our fundamental training by 3%, and we had a grace period for on down training, and when that grace period ended, meant that we've not been able to achieve our plan for improving our fundamental training, and also the third one, which is around development of the quality dashboard, which hasn't progressed yet. So those are the goals which are rated as red in this report. in terms of the updates around all the goals, I'll take those as read. And then moving on to our strategy refresh, we are now starting to think about the principles that we want to adopt in refreshing our strategy. This is quite timely given that we're also developing the system-wide mental health strategy next year. So we'll be able to align our strategy with that. There are some key principles in here that align with what we've done previously. We want to make sure that it's co-produced. Last time we had a quality mark from Recovery for All, so really committed to making sure that we do co-produce and work with our experts by experience. Also need to make sure that our strategy is aligned to our risk appetite. We have all completed the survey, so we will make sure that it's aligned to that and have a mix of different channels of communication with colleagues across the organisation and our partners. There is a timeline in this report, which I'm not going to go through, that the high-level timeline of where we'll start the engagement, where we plan to launch the strategy. So I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions, Patrick, on this strategy? Please do, please do thank Abby for the work and the team, for the work that they're doing. They did a great job. I came to this trust when the strategy was being launched, and it was a broad strategy, and it was received really, really well, and the engagement that we got as well from staff, and now we're at this juncture where we're looking to review. There are some tricky areas in terms of some of that relates to, in terms of where we have achieved the development related to our strategy. They correlate with the IPR as well. When we look at that and we look at some of the areas there, the two of them actually do dovetail where, you know, we haven't made significant inroads in some key areas where we definitely need to be doing so. So in terms of those areas, what are the plans going forwards to see if we can shift the dial from, because obviously we don't want to create a strategy that has the same areas where we've not made significant inroads into.
Yeah, I think my view is about building on what we've done already, so it doesn't mean that in some of those areas there hasn't been any progress in any way. So how can we build that and potentially reflect on if there's any resource that we need to accelerate the pace, recognizing some of the issues are wicked issues, so we need to think about our approach. So for example, around inequalities is reflecting on what have we achieved so far and what we need to do more of. So I wouldn't necessarily think that we're not going to have anything to do with inequalities in our new strategy, because we've had that, but it's about how can we continue to make improvements. I think that is the key thing.
Okay. So when's this coming back to us?
In terms of the refresh or
the refresh of something.
Yeah, so
process with us as a board.
Right.
Yeah, so the timeline in terms of the refresh does say kind of when we kind of have engagement conversations, but we will report anyway. I think that'll probably be around May when we can come with the end of year report, and we'll give you an update again then.
It'll be April because of bi-monthly board, so it's just April. Trying to do the math in my head.
Maybe June.
So just to clarify, will this refresh tie in with the 10-year NHS plan?
Yeah, so there's two things. When I talked about the system strategy, we expect that the 10-year plan will be published around May. So we want to make sure that there is an alignment with that system element. So we expect that we'll have that system strategy potentially around June. when we look at our timeline for organisational strategy, that means we'll be able to reflect the expectations within the 10-year plan in this.
What we don't want to do is wait
Yeah.
and start the consultation and then get the kind of co-production work. So we're going to stick to the timeline we've got, which is starting January, recognising that key pieces of strategic work will be done nationally and locally.
Yeah. Well, we've got some of the 3 key themes already, so framing it around that.
Yeah. Great, thank you. Thanks, Patrick. If there are no other questions, we'll move over to the short report from the Audit Committee.
Yeah, I'll keep this pretty short, because the aerofoil, I take the papers read, the aerofoil, I think, as well, we've already done something about it in the commission meeting later on. That was around the risk register for the commission committee. The audit committee continues to do the work in overseeing internal audits, the risk register, for the insurance framework, external audit. I don't think there are any key matters to alert the board to at this stage, so I would say no news is good news in relation to the audit committee. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Is the audit committee going through the process of reviewing, is it internal or external?
It's external audit tender, yeah. Because external audit contract comes, I think, it's expired, isn't it?
It's expired.
And
the
so
next one, there needs to be a gradual.
that's right. So I think Dave, myself, Val, and Lee got around the process of
Going through that process?
Yeah. So we'll report back to the board when we've done what we need to do. We just need to have a quick catch up sometime today.
Okay.
On that board.
Any other questions? No? Okay. So it's over to you, Kat. It's just the bond slavery statement for approval.
It is, yes. So that this is a statutory requirement that needs to be published on our website. The current one ran out this year, so this is just the 2-yearly refresh. So it's just to get for approval.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Pretty straightforward. Thanks. Thank you, Kat. And then it is the committee terms of reference. Again, this is just for ratification of all committee terms of reference, which have already been approved. So we can ratify that as a board. I don't believe there are any queries in relation to that. That's great. And then, David, for you, again, for approval only, and that's the risk management policy and risk appetite. We did get a survey that was sent out to us.
Thank you to everyone. Everyone did respond to this one. Yes.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, so the first part here is the risk management policy, which is it's normally one of those very rare policies that comes to the board for ratification. So this policy is being through the trust governance arrangement. The policy development and management group has been there. It's been through the risk management group. It's also been through the chair of the audit committee for chair action. They will formally go to the audit committee in January for noting and minting as well. So the policy is come here for ratification by the board. And then once it is ratified, and then the risk appetite memo is also ratified today, will now be incorporated into the updated policy. So within this paper, we've highlighted some of those sections that have been have witnessed some minor changes. And then within the policy itself, the minor changes are reflected in orange. Happy to take any questions. So the ask from the committee is from the board is to ratify.
Happy to ratify that. Are there any queries?
So I've got a quick query.
Yes.
So it talks about the corporate risk register, and that will be reported to the board alongside the BAF. Yeah. So I presume that's something that we're going to continue to do in the future, because at the moment we just do the BAF, but not have a corporate risk register.
So corporate risk register included in the BAF report, so you get in each of the areas the corporate risks that are on there. So the report includes the corporate risk register, David.
Yeah, yes, I think what he's referring to is the corporate risk account separately, but within the BAF we do reflect the link risk to the CRR, which is what David said, we do reflect the link risk to the CRR. So the conversation is, do we need the corporate register to come as an independent document here, or do we just refer to it as a link in terms of link risk? The decision for the board to make around that.
So I agree, the BAF does refer to linked risk in the corporate risk register. But I guess I'm just thinking, would there be any risks on the corporate risk register that isn't linked to the BAF?
No. So effectively, we go through anything we score through mitigated, reviewed, etc. risk management group. They come up to the various committees, I think, to go through. So they're seeing they're the ones that are relative to there, and then they're reflecting the report going through. I'm not sure the value for the corporate risk register is separately in that way. So each risk that's in the corporate risk register that comes forward is linked. If the risk is an obvious thing, you go and review, actually you've got one of these wrong.
Okay.
But that's in, and that's the way we do it. You can do it differently.
Okay. Okay. What's on my side of this one?
Any other questions, queries? David, thank you as well for drawing our attention in the risk management policy where you've highlighted the areas in yellow just to draw our attention to those key areas there, so which is really helpful. But thank you for that, and obviously the board is approving and ratifying the policy today.
Thank you. And then the last paper from me for the day is the draft risk appetite framework for the trust. Just to echo Kat what she said, and thank every member of the board for having completed the survey. So it's been a 100% score. So in terms of just a recap, the risk appetite framework demonstrates and defines the type of level of risk that the board is willing to accept or not to accept in order to enable the organization operational teams to deliver and to achieve both operational and strategic goals of the organization. So in terms of the risk appetite framework, we're reflecting here some of the added value of having a risk appetite within the organization. It's one of those very rare instruments which is ratified by the board for it to be incorporated into the policy. And then just one key element to note is that although the members of the board were very evidently agreed on some of the risk appetite categories, for the risk type of property and environment, there was no overt or clearly defined agreement. So there will be a need here for a short conversation as to what should be the risk appetite category for this risk type for property and environment. In terms of the score, there are 4 members of the respondents, 4 members of the board were chose open, and then while 4 chose eager. And then we on the next page we sort of define what eager refers to and what open refers to as well, just to help guide and shape the conversation. So it will be important for the board to sort of identify what will be the risk appetite category for the risk type of property and environment. Bear in mind the level of our estate, the availability, suitability, and sustainability. Thank you. I will take questions.
Are there any questions?
Just a comment. I suppose it's a bit the same as digital, depending where you come from. So this can mean if people are prepared to be open, it can mean actually we've got some pretty poor conditions, but it's okay because then generally it's okay. So you can say you look at the one end for things like you want minimum standards like number of toilets and all that type of stuff in accommodation versus also in this, how do we get the best therapeutic environments, etc. So we just need to think about, actually, we're trying to group too many together. That's what this is telling you, essentially. It might be think about that, or we just work out and get a consensus around it. It's important to get along with it.
True.
Just to build on that, I looked at eager and sort of almost categorised it as the fact that you need to be entrepreneurial.
Yes.
Sort of quite free thinking. And the fact that we're an FT as well. We've got a little bit more latitude to do.
Just trying to do what they are on that.
But yeah.
And that might be the categorisation, mightn't it? In our strategic decision making, we want to be really easier. But in our day-to-day, making sure standards are right and etc., we might want to be more corporate or culture. Split them
I don't think there's an easy answer to this one because I'm with Val on this. I think just the range of land buildings that we have, we ought to be a bit more entrepreneurial on them, I think. And then on the other hand, of those facilities that we have for patients and staff, I'd like to be absolutely safe and of quality. So I guess I want both really, as a board. I want us to make sure the private sector and grow our estate, but equally that to be reinvested in the same services that we have. So I want a bit of both to be honest. That's not an easy answer to the question, but that's where I was. So I'll put it here as well from that point of view.
Is there anything stopping us, David, given this is our framework, separating this into two separate things?
Yeah, we could do that. The board can decide to separate it from environment,
Then can we do that then?
Yes, please.
So, if I take that away as final statement around property environment, so we have
Yes.
that effectively we describe one at the one end of that. Okay, I might say that would be.
So if we separate, what will be the risk appetite categories for each of them? For property, what do we go with? Is it open or eager or cautious or minimal? And then for environment, what do we go for as well? Just need to have that agreement so that we just nail that and when later I do the work.
Yeah, well, thank you. Thank you both. We look forward to that coming back to the board.
Okay. So if that has to come back to the board, it means the risk appetite, the risk management policy that has been ratified today cannot be published because we need to incorporate the risk appetite here.
Well, you and I did this week and decided to send it round.
Okay.
So we do it in that way.
As long as it reflects what we just said.
Yes.
We're delegating the responsibility to make that happen and review on that.
So we're moving on to the living the trust values, which is for Vida.
Just about meeting today.
Just actually, if you want to just give your reflections of how you've actually witnessed the trust values in your work, in your visits, and so forth. Just give a
Yeah, I can give a really good example of how a patient on one of our wards was really, neglected due to his illness for a long time, and a very simple act by a healthcare assistant of, helping him in the shower, giving him a haircut, or supporting him with that, actually just makes such a big difference to the well-being of the person. I thought, it had all the values of the trust. He had, disabilities that meant he couldn't do certain things for himself. So that was very inclusive, and also it was mental health. But I have gone around to many places where people have gone over and above, and told us really difficult stories about how they've come to an organization, they've had challenges, but then they've moved on to leadership and made the difference that they initially suffered themselves to do. So I think overall, the last few months, a lot of my visits have been, coming back feeling very positive, and also I feel the difference in most of our colleagues, including the colleagues. So, for example, we've had a QI project on international medical graduates, which has got a prize at a very competitive conference. And that was really about how do we welcome new people to this country, to our trust, and it was led by them. So that was very good as well. So, there, because I think
Thank you. It's important to reflect on how the values being demonstrated. And so we're bringing this alive, and also we're owning it as board members as well, and ensuring that these aren't just three individual words that are on our documentation and flashed around our different services, but actually we really are holding ourselves to account, and we also want to see demonstration of the values in our work, because people ultimately increase the quality of care that we give to both our patients and service users, but also it will give an added sense of value to our colleagues that actually this trust really do live, breathe the values that they talk about, and it's evident to see. So, and I'm saying that for the record to say it's not just an exercise that we're going through here when we're asking our colleagues around the board to reflect on values and how they've seen them demonstrated in the trust. We're actually reiterating that we hold these very dearly, and we're holding ourselves up to the mirror in relation to the values. And so I would encourage our board members as well, when you are doing your visits, just really look to see if you can see, compassionate, inclusive, while you're talking with our colleagues, with our staff, where you're seeing the care, you're seeing the interaction, and not just by all levels of our staff, because the values relate irrespective of what grade you are. So I just wanted to really make that point, because I didn't want us to sit and think that was just the values, and we're just going through, through promotion of doing this just to tick the box. We're actually saying this is really important to us, and hopefully this is going to be actually cascaded down, and people will really feel accountable in terms of their actions and their behaviours with regards to values as a whole. So just wanted to make that point. In relation to the BAF, this is just about the Shultz framework reflections. Is there anything from today's discussions, what you've heard today, that you feel needs to be reflected in the BAF, which are not already reflected in the BAF?
It is making a couple of review on things that we talked earlier on about, was the impact of partnerships, council work, etc. So I think it's just important to recognise that. Others, of course, have been on that, so it's maybe just thinking about we've got that covered. More than not, that's what I'm thinking about.
Definitely, it has a significant impact, and it can have a significant impact because the courts, they may have impact that could be on the quality of care, or our restrictions to be able to community. Or is it reflected in the?
I wonder whether it might be a factor in not being able to deliver. So look at the risk. It's not necessarily a separate one, but it would be a factor in a number of things.
Yeah.
But that's why Chair was saying, referring to the corporate research thing, like sticking with the corporate research and not necessarily refer to the BAF. Because with the BAF, we've got 9 clear areas of the BAF, haven't we, where we're linking up to our strategic objectives. With CRO, it's slightly different, and you might be able to reflect it there. I don't know. It's debatable point.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it's already in there, but forgive me if it is. Just to make sure that triangulation of health and qualities is through all of the committees and throughout the whole life as well.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I don't believe there's any other business. Any just questions from governors or members of the public?
I don't really have any questions, but I did want to say that I went to see Mushtaq this week, who's not doing very well, and he wanted me to pass on his warmest regards. He's real genuine love for everyone. He's really sorry that he couldn't be here today, and he thinks it's Rasheen that started a 15-step initiative. I don't know who started it, but I know that we do that as part of our peer-to-peer reviews. So it's your first 15 steps onto any inpatient area and what you make of that environment. And he believes that within the first 15 steps, whether you're a patient, a carer, a member of the public or staff, you will already make up your mind about what your experience of that environment will be. And so he's asked us as the ministry to continue that initiative and how we would like to do that going forward. And so that is his ask today and wishes everyone a really Merry Christmas.
Yeah, I think he really did in this. We've all sent him messages this week from the message that he sent to us, and at the end of that, the main colleagues are also going to visit him. He's been a strong advocate for this trust as well, and he's also been a really good ambassador at ICS, ICP meetings. I turn up and Mush is there, and he always has a question to ask and to pose, which is fantastic. So it's just unfortunate that he's not well, but the contribution that he's actually made in his role as a governor, in his role of advocating for service users, has been absolutely fantastic. So we will continue to be supporting him through his journey of recovery, hopefully, and also visiting him. So I'm sure colleagues will take you on.
We did want you to know that he is in the last stage of his life, so
yes.
He wanted you to be aware of that. So,
yes.
And he wanted you all to be in touch and message. And so he wanted you to be aware.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, just adding to that, I think, he certainly intends to carry on with his project as well.
Yeah.
So, it's really nice to speak to him about this one last night. At our last COG pre-meet, one of the main topics that governors brought up was sickness absence, and it's really reassuring and to see that being discussed in various ways today. However, I would invite some reflection on perhaps the next COG or in between, before the next COG, some clarity on the figures, because it may be because there are different reporting periods involved. But it doesn't, on the face of it, it looks to me as though we have different reports in the IPR report compared to the people report, compared to the strategy update. In the people report, there's clear concern expressed and recognised in the work taking place. In the strategy update, it's cast as a green, and in the IPR, it's in between, I think. So, I think that's just something to reflect on. I know these packs are massive, and work takes place in different timescales and different times when you go together. But I do think it serves us best if we can have consistency or clear delineation between the three. So you could read either one of those and draw a different conclusion.
And thanks for pointing out, John. Being fully aware that the reports can be different because of the different purposes of reporting and also the data lag. Secondly, it is something that's tracked in the committee consistently. So I can assure you that, and also in terms of the assurance that comes through with schools talking about the HR clinics and so forth.
Yes.
I think the strategy element, because we report to the board twice a year on the strategy. So what you see in terms of the rating is more based on when we're achieving the actions that based on that goal, rather than actually the month-to-month tracking of the data. I'm quite happy to kind of have a conversation around that. But thanks for pointing it out. We'll try and find a way of making it a little more clear.
Yeah, thank you. I think I anticipated that's what you might say about the strategy report, because there is a qualitative story there and objectives being achieved over time. But thank you for that. Welcome. Thank you.
And if there are no other questions,
May I change? It's just an observation. So I think the good news here, I just wanted to share just some reflections that come from some system leaders nationally in relation to the work that we're doing professionally for early years careers and how we're actually matching the new roles that we're bringing into patient outcomes. So we're looking at actually matching the competency that we need from our workforce to the desired needs and outcomes of our service users. And one of the things, I know Phoebe introduced herself here, but one of the ways for me that's been really demonstrable is I am by trade a clinical psychologist, I'm a supervisor. Phoebe is here with me on a leadership placement, which we're really trying to ensure that we push. So we are really leveraging leadership behaviours at an early stage in people's careers, rather than waiting for it to happen when you're well established as a leader in an NHS organisation. So we've just been commended for some of the work that we've been doing.
Excellent, Sonny. That's fantastic. Brilliant work that's been done there, and what that will do will cause us to be kind of a beacon and attract people to want to come and work for our trust, and that is what is happening. So fantastic to you and your comments. It's good to see you, Robbie. It's good to meet you. That concludes today's board meeting. Thank you for everybody. 10 minutes to go.